All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we're joined by Dr. Maya Javed Anfar, who's joining us live from Tel Aviv. He's in fact a lecturer of Iranian politics at the Reichman University in Israel. He's also a West Asia analyst and the co-author of The Nuclear Sphinx of Tehran. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Javed Anfar, for joining us here on WION. And let me in fact start off by asking you this. This was an announcement that was made by Donald Trump at the White House after he'd met with Benjamin Netanyahu, where he said that the United States wanted to have direct high-level talks with Iran over a nuclear deal. My question to you is this. Donald Trump in 2018 walked out of a nuclear deal that the Americans had negotiated with the Iranians. How different do you think the talks this time round will be? And what does Donald Trump have to offer that'll be different from the JCPOA of 2015?
That's an excellent question. And I think one factor that all of us observers have to take into consideration is that President Trump is an unpredictable person. It's extremely difficult to predict what he's going to do. This is one of his strengths, but it also could be one of his weaknesses. It's his allies don't know how he's going to react, what he's going to be, what his plans are, because he acts in a very unpredictable fashion. He acts as he wishes, takes decisions sometimes on the spots, and it's very difficult to predict exactly what kind of an agreement he's going to reach with the Iranians. Is he going to settle? Is he going to demand maximum? Is he going to make maximum demands, or is he going to settle for something less, something which could be actually against the interest of the state of Israel? I would like to remind your viewers that Israeli officials told Axios News that they want all of Iran's nuclear program dismantled, just as was the case with the Libyan nuclear program during Muammar Gaddafi. Mm-hmm. Is this what President Trump is going to demand? We simply don't know. But the Iranians, since 2018, when President Trump walked out of the nuclear deal, their economic situation and their diplomatic situation has worsened considerably, which is why, despite the fact that it was President Trump who broke the nuclear deal, Iran is now returning to the negotiation table.
And also, what do you think will be the approach of the Iranians, considering that they had a deal exactly a decade ago, and now they are back to square one, back to the drawing board? And also, how do you assess as to the third wheel in this entire arrangement, which is the state of Israel? Israel was very unhappy with the JCPOA. And in the event that these talks that Donald Trump is suggesting will happen, go ahead and are successful, how do you think the Israelis will react?
Let me start with the second part of your question. If President Trump reaches a deal with Iran that Israel doesn't like, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that Israel can do. Nothing. The Prime Minister Netanyahu and the state of Israel is not going to challenge President Trump. We see this already with the issue of with Gaza. We see it with the issue of the tariffs. There is nothing that Israel can do. We can complain, we can try to lobby, but at the end of the day, let's be honest with ourselves. President Trump does what he sees is the best interest of the United States, and Israel does not have the leverage to change his mind. If we were talking about President Biden, then it would be different. But President Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, is very fearful of President Trump. Where we could say the opposite about his views of President Biden, but he's not going to challenge a decision taken by President Trump. It's all now in his hands. The security of America and the security of Israel is in the hands of President Trump, and we in Israel will be hoping that he reaches a deal which is in our interests. Right. Sorry, what was the first part of the question?
The first part of the question was, how do you think the Iranians will be approaching these talks that are slated to take place on Saturday?
Iranians will be approaching these talks cognizant of the fact that the hand is very weak. On the one hand, the Islamic Republic knows that overwhelming majority of its population is very angry and dissatisfied with its management of the economy and Iran's diplomatic relations. I think if a referendum were held in Iran and people were asked, do you think there should be the current regime should be replaced with a new one which has at least better relations with the West and has better economic policies, I think overwhelming majority of Iranians will wish for a change. But they can't do it because the regime suppresses and oppresses most Iranians.
All right.
So the regime knows that at home it's very weak, its position is very weak. It also knows that abroad it has been greatly weakened by Israel's decapitation of Hezbollah, the loss of Syria.
Right.
China and Russia, despite being Iran allies, they've got their own priorities. They're not going to sacrifice their interests and their points of their negotiation chips with Trump over Iran. So Iran is cognizant of the fact that its hand is weaker. So it will have to be very careful about how it projects these negotiations, because it does not want to project weakness to its own population and to its allies in the region.
All right, we're completely out of time. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Maya Javed Anfar, for joining us from Tel Aviv and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.